Conway Wycliffe, The Dark Knight. On November 3, 2008, at the Chinetiq test site in Longcross, Surrey, England, a film crew prepared a vehicle stunt test for a Batman sequel. Conway Wycliffe, 41 years old, was positioned in the rear seat of a Nissan 4x4 while operating a camera during the run. Wycliffe leaned partially out of the rear window to operate the mounted camera. The run required the vehicle to complete a sharp 90-degree turn at the end of the track. Crew members observed the test from fixed positions along the route. As the vehicle reached the end of the run, it failed to execute the required turn. The Nissan continued forward off the service road and into the grass. Moments later, it struck a tree at approximately 20 miles per hour. Wycliffe sustained severe injuries during the impact. Crew members ran to the vehicle immediately after the collision. Wycliffe was pronounced dead at the scene. An inquest later examined the circumstances of the failed turn during the test run. Wycliffe was commemorated in the closing credits of The Dark Knight. His death became a reference point in discussions about vehicle-based camera work and stunt safety on film sets. Jose Marco, Shark. In 1969, off the coast of Mexico, a staged filming sequence took place in shallow coastal waters. Jose Marco was inside a vehicle driven into the sea, surrounded by cameras, crew members, and repeated assurances that the situation was under control. The production was shooting a low-budget adventure film later released as Shark. The plot was straightforward: smugglers, a woman, and a deadly predator beneath the surface. But the filmmakers wanted authenticity, something that felt raw and undeniable on screen. Instead of special effects, real sharks were brought in. The crew claimed the animals had been sedated, that their movements would be slow, predictable, safe. But the ocean doesn't follow directions. As Marco entered the water, a shark was already moving nearby. Cameras continued rolling. Moments later, the situation changed without warning. The attack came quickly and violently. Before anyone could intervene, the shark struck, inflicting fatal injuries. By the time safety divers reached him, Jose Marco was already dead. For a period, the footage reportedly existed. Later accounts suggested it may have appeared briefly in early versions of the film before being removed. The studio altered the project's title from Kane to Shark, leaning into the controversy to generate attention. The strategy succeeded, and the film drew headlines. The director benefited. The production gained a reputation for realism. Jose Marco, working as a stunt performer, fisherman, and background actor, became one of the earliest people to lose his life during the making of a shark film, years before the industry accepted that realism sometimes came at the cost of human life. Roy Kinnear, The Return of the Musketeers. On September 19, 1988, in Toledo, Spain, the cast and crew of The Return of the Musketeers prepared to film a mounted chase sequence on a centuries-old bridge over the Tagus River. Roy Kinnear, 54 years old, a veteran actor known for performing his own stunts, was positioned among the riders as filming began. The environment, however, was unforgiving. Rain earlier that day had left the stone slick. The bridge was narrow, worn, and uneven underhoof. As filming began, the director called for action. Horses lunged forward, blades raised, capes whipping through the air. Midway across the bridge, Kinnear's horse lost its footing. It slipped suddenly, throwing him sideways with force into the stone barrier. The collision caused devastating injuries. Production halted instantly. Crew members rushed to his side as he lay on the cobblestones, barely breathing. He was flown by helicopter to a hospital in Madrid. Several hours later, during emergency surgery, Roy Kinnear went into cardiac arrest. He was pronounced dead that night. The following year, the film opened with just 2 words: for Roy. Brandon Lee, The Crow. On March 31st, 1993, in Wilmington, North Carolina, United States, during a night shoot on the set of The Crow, Brandon Lee, 28 years old, the son of Bruce Lee, was positioned as the film's lead actor, portraying Eric Draven. The setup is straightforward. Brandon walks into a room. Another actor raises a prop firearm. A shot is fired. The moment is designed to be entirely staged, safe, controlled. The weapon is a .44 Magnum held by Michael Massey. It is supposed to contain only blanks. But during earlier preparations, a live round had been lodged inside the barrel. The obstruction went unnoticed. When the trigger is pulled, the gun discharges with lethal force. The projectile strikes Brandon in the abdomen. He stumbles backward and falls. The crew applauds, assuming the collapse is part of the scene. Brandon does not rise. Stunt coordinator Jeff Imada realizes something is wrong and immediately calls for medical assistance. Brandon is rushed to the hospital, where surgeons operate for 6 hours. The internal injuries are extensive and irreversible. At 1:04 p.m. on March 31st, 1993, Brandon Lee was pronounced dead, only weeks before his wedding. Only days before filming was set to conclude. Subsequent investigations uncover critical safety failures, inadequate weapon checks, lack of experience, and procedural negligence. Firearms safety standards on film sets are later revised. Too late for Brandon Lee. Joy S.J. Harris, Deadpool 2. On August 14, 2017, in Vancouver, Canada, a closed film set was prepared for a controlled stunt sequence in an open plaza. Joy S.J. Harris, 40 years old, was positioned on a motorcycle to perform a riding maneuver for a feature film production. The stunt required riding a Ducati across the plaza, slowing and coming to a controlled stop. The surface consisted of smooth concrete bordered by raised curbs and storefront facades. No explosive effects or external obstacles were part of the sequence. Harris wore a character wardrobe without a helmet to keep the rider's face visible on camera. The run was scheduled as a straightforward pass through the space. During the run, Harris lost control of the motorcycle. The bike veered toward the edge of the plaza. Its front wheel struck a curb at speed. Harris was thrown from the motorcycle and propelled forward. She collided headfirst with a glass storefront window. The impact was immediate and catastrophic. Crew members rushed toward the scene as the motorcycle slid to a stop nearby. Harris was pronounced dead at the scene from injuries sustained in the impact. She was a professional stunt performer and the first black female motorcycle stunt rider in Hollywood, and this was her first feature film job. Her death prompted renewed scrutiny of helmet exemptions, rehearsal standards, and risk assessment in film productions. Twilight Zone. On July 23, 1982, shortly after midnight, at Indian Dunes, California, filming continued on the set of Twilight Zone, the movie during a Vietnam War sequence involving explosions and low-flying aircraft. Director John Landis was overseeing the scene as a helicopter maneuvered above the set. Veteran actor Vic Morrow is part of the scene. He is carrying two child actors through shallow water, 7-year-old Micah Dinlay and 6-year-old Renee Chen. The setup is already unsafe. The children are working late at night, in violation of standard child labor rules. Pyrotechnic charges are placed dangerously close to a helicopter hovering just overhead. During the take, explosive effects erupt beneath the aircraft. The blasts destabilize the helicopter, sending it out of control. It crashes directly into the actors below. The spinning rotor blades strike Vic Morrow and Micah Dinlay, killing them instantly. Renee Chen is crushed beneath the helicopter's landing skids. The cameras are still running. Crew members freeze, watching the aftermath in disbelief. The incident permanently reshapes film production in the United States. Sarah Jones, Midnight Rider. On February 20th, 2014, in Wayne County, Georgia, a film crew entered an active railroad bridge spanning the Altamaha River to prepare a shot for a feature film production. Sarah Jones, 27 years old, was positioned on the tracks while assisting with camera setup. The bridge carried live freight traffic and had no pedestrian walkway. No filming permit had been issued for the location. No warning system or train lookout had been established. The bridge remained open to rail traffic throughout the preparation. A freight train approached at full speed. There was no advance warning. Crew members noticed the train only moments before impact. Panic spread as people ran toward the ends of the bridge. Sarah Jones was struck by the train and killed instantly. Jones's death sparked the global Safety for Sarah movement, advocating stricter on-set protections.